So Jeremy asked me to come up here and talk a little bit about what I've learned. I've done a few different businesses here in Utah. I've had a couple successful exits and several companies that I've built and had funded and whatnot. So when I thought back on that and really what fundamentally has helped me be a successful entrepreneur, it was pretty easy. It's so hard for me with like a stationary mic. But it really fundamentally has come down to one thing, and that is IP. And I know as I say that, everybody's going, oh, yeah, intellectual property. That's right. No, I don't actually mean intellectual property. I actually mean IP in the shower. So now what I mean by that concept of IP in the shower is, you know what? I don't mean necessarily that, hey, I conserve water because I don't flush the toilet, but what I mean is that's one of those embarrassing little aspects of a person, right? That I don't pee in the shower all the time, but anybody in this room that says they've never peed in the shower is a liar, right? And that's one of the funny things about being an entrepreneur is fundamentally we're way too often trying to do the entrepreneurial equivalent of staring at the cover of Cosmo and going, how do I look like that, right? Oh, hey, thank you. Now I can move. I got no strings still. No, we're doing the entrepreneurial equivalent of looking at that cover of Cosmopolitan and saying, how do I look like that? How do I be that entrepreneur? How do I be that guy at the AMP session or that guy, at the convention that was all excited and told me about all of his successes? Well, guess what? He's wearing a long shirt because he's hiding all the scars that got him there. And fundamentally, we need to realize that the first step to being successful is admitting our weaknesses. So, for example, how many of you in here have children? So I have 4 children. My son raised his hand. I have 4 children, and when I look at my 2 oldest boys, one of them is pretty darn good at math, but he can't spell all that well. Can't spell his way out of a paper bag. My other son spells pretty darn well. He writes well, he reads well, but he's not all that great at math. So the question is, which one of my kids is an idiot, right? Well, realistically, the answer to that question is neither one of my kids is an idiot. Each of my kids has different strengths and different weaknesses. And when you look at entrepreneurs, far too often as an entrepreneur, individuals try to run the company by feeling like they have to be capable of doing everything. They don't reach out to other people. They can't take a step back and say, I am a technology genius. I architect wonderful technology solutions, but I'm not all that good with people, so I need to surround myself with individuals that are good with people, right? I mean, just as an example, I lead through passion, right? I get pretty excited about whatever I'm talking about. I'll rally the troops and we'll charge the hill and we'll take that front. But when I get to the other side, I don't always want to hear that you have a boo-boo and that you need a hug, right? That's just not fundamentally one of the things that I'm good at. And for years, I really tried to be that person. I thought, I really need to be more compassionate and I really need to put my arm around individuals. And to a certain extent, that's true. But at some point, you're trying to pretend to be something you're not, right? At some point, I'm not that person that can have somebody come in their office every 2 weeks and well up with tears and say, hey, I just need to know how I'm doing. And I can go put my arm around that person and go, have my lip quiver and say, you're still doing really well. I have to keep watching Jeremy. He told me he's going to slide tackle me at the end of 10 minutes. So I took a step back and I realized that I could surround myself with those individuals. I could surround myself with people who are really good at giving a hug when people need to have hugs. And that allowed me to focus on what I was really good at. I architect things well. I go into meetings and wave my arms and have big ideas, right? But I don't always follow through well. I'm not the best project manager. I'm not the person that can follow our milestones and tell whether or not we're always on task. That's not to say that I shouldn't try to improve, but the first step to being successful at anything is really admitting what I am, admitting what I enjoy, admitting what I'm good at, admitting that I pee in the shower, right? So that concept, I pee in the shower, realistically is just a phrase. It's a statement that I use to remind myself and other people around me to say, look, it's those things that are a little bit embarrassing to admit about yourself. Those things that you feel like you really should be good at, but you're not. And until you can admit that you're not, you can't surround yourself with the team that can help you fulfill your real potential so that you can focus on your highest and your best value. So that really is the first fundamental concept that I focus on as an entrepreneur. How am I doing on time? About halfway? Okay. So the second concept that I want to talk about with entrepreneurialism is another concept that you may not hear a lot about. Everybody stands up all the time and says, hey, here's my success, and here's my wonderful team, and they well up, and I couldn't have done it without these people, and that's true. But the thing that you never hear is the 3 people that were part of the starting team that aren't standing there. They're not part of the team anymore, right? And anybody in the room who's done a successful venture from startup to exit has probably had to help one of their co-founders to exit the company at some point. That's one of the hidden secrets of entrepreneurialism that a lot of people don't talk about. And that is, if you sit down and say, okay, I've got an idea, I believe in this idea, and I took me and my 3 best friends and we're forming a company. Well, if you really believe in your idea, that means you believe this is going to get big, right? And if you really believe that this is going to get big, and you believe that you and those 3 people are the right management team to run a $100 million company, then you're fooling yourself, right? Because you're going to grow. Some of you are going to make it all the way. Some of you are not going to make it all of the way. Some of you are going to have to admit at certain stages of your company that you're not the right people for the team anymore. And the difficulty and the thing that almost kills, if it doesn't kill a lot of startups, is when you hit those points, because it's painful. You know the person doesn't fit anymore. They know they don't fit anymore. The employees know they don't fit anymore. And as employees, you've probably seen this in companies. There's the executive that you kind of know shouldn't be there anymore, but he's rallying support around himself. And it's just painful to watch this happen. It's like watching a marriage break up. And the time to have that discussion isn't at that painful point. The time to have that discussion is at the inception of your company. You need to sit down and say, look, if we believe in our dream, that means that someone will replace some or all of us as this company grows, and we need to plan for that right now. And to set that strategy up and say, look, while we're all friends, let's come up with a strategy right now that says how we exit when we outgrow us as individuals. How can the company buy individuals out? How do we exit cleanly, either if the company's outgrown us, or you know what, maybe one of us decides this just isn't our passion anymore, and we want to go ahead and move on and do something else. So when I look back entrepreneurially at the companies that I've been involved in, the companies that I've started, the companies that I've been employed at, and if I had to fundamentally suggest 2 changes that would have helped every single one of those ventures a ton, it would have been these 2 concepts. It would have been, number 1, from the inception, everybody's got to realize your goal is to get your company so successful that somebody else needs to run it. And that's okay. Plan for that right now. And the second thing is, I refer back to Josh Coates did an awesome presentation at last LaunchUp where he said, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but X is you and Y is what you want. And to achieve Y, the first fundamental thing you need to do is you need to understand what X is. You need to understand what you are. Because otherwise you can't build a company around you that's going to be successful. And the first step of that is taking a step back and saying, you know what, I pee in the shower. There's embarrassing things about me. Maybe I'm not a good project manager. Maybe I'm not that good with money. Maybe I don't give people hugs well, or maybe I cry too much. Whatever it is, I can't tell you how many companies the executive likes to be so energetic that he can't fire people, right? He just can't do it. So these companies have VPs of this and VPs of that the CEO really needs to step in and cut these people because everybody knows that it's time, but he hasn't admitted to himself that he needs to surround himself with people that can help him do that. Again, people just need to fundamentally take a step back and realize their strengths and realize their weaknesses. And I sense a slide tackle on the way. So I'll take a couple questions if anybody has any.